The year is 1848. A revolutionary fire is sweeping across Europe, toppling kings and shaking ancient empires. And in Rome, the Eternal City, that fire has reached the very doors of the Vatican. A furious mob, stirred by nationalist fervor, has murdered the Pope's prime minister and is now laying siege to the Quirinal Palace, the papal residence. Inside, Pope Pius IX, once hailed as a liberal hero, is now a prisoner. The situation is desperate. This is the untold, true story of how the Vicar of Christ disguised himself as a common priest and, under the cover of darkness, pulled off one of the most daring and dramatic escapes in papal history. Pope Pius X, known as Pio IX, began his pontificate in 1846 as a figure of immense hope for the liberals and nationalists of Italy. He was seen as a reformer, a man who would modernize the papal states and perhaps even lead the charge to unite Italy into a single nation. But he was caught in an impossible position. He was both a temporal, political ruler of a large part of Italy and the spiritual father of a global church that included the very empire, Austria, that the Italian nationalists wanted to expel. He could not, and would not, lead a war against another Catholic nation. When he refused to back the nationalist war against Austria, the love of the Roman people curdled into hatred. The revolutionary mob, led by figures like Giuseppe Mazzini, saw him as a traitor. The atmosphere in Rome grew thick with tension and the threat of violence. The breaking point came on November 15, 1848. The Pope's lay prime minister, an able and respected man named Pellegrino Rossi, was brutally assassinated in broad daylight on the steps of the Parliament building. The mob celebrated, parading the killer's knife through the streets. The next day, thousands of revolutionaries surrounded the Quirinal Palace, trapping the Pope inside. They presented a list of demands for a fully democratic government, which would have stripped the Pope of all temporal power. When the Swiss guards tried to disperse the crowd, gunfire erupted. The Pope's own secretary was shot and killed while standing at a window beside him. The palace was under siege. Pius XIX was now a captive. It was clear he had to escape. A secret plan was hatched by the French and Bavarian ambassadors, the Duc d'Harcourt and Karl von Spauer. The challenge was immense: how to smuggle the most recognizable man in Rome through a city swarming with hostile revolutionaries. The plan was set for the evening of November 24th. The Duc d'Harcourt arrived at the palace in his grand diplomatic carriage, making a great show of a formal visit to the Pope. This was a diversion, meant to convince the guards and spies watching the main gate that nothing unusual was happening. While the French ambassador engaged the Pope in a loud, animated conversation near the door of the audience chamber, Pius IX slipped out a side door into a hidden room. There, he shed his white papal cassock. He put on the simple black cassock of an ordinary priest and a pair of dark glasses. The transformation was complete. The Pope was now Don Carlo, a humble clergyman. Imagine the feeling of that coarse black wool after a lifetime in papal white, the unfamiliar weight of the dark glasses, the heart-pounding tension of the moment. Guided by the Bavarian ambassador, the disguised Pope crept through secret, dimly lit corridors of the palace. They reached a small, unguarded side door. A simple, unmarked carriage was waiting in the dark street outside. The sound of the carriage door closing, a soft click in the night, must have been deafening to the fugitives. The Pope and his companions huddled inside as the carriage rattled through the hostile streets of Rome. Every shout from a revolutionary patrol, every shadow in a dark alley was a source of terror. Their destination was Gaeta, a fortress town safely in the territory of the neighboring kingdom of Naples. The journey was fraught with peril. At one point, they were stopped by a suspicious patrol. The Bavarian ambassador's wife, who was part of the escape party, cleverly feigned a fit of hysterics. distracting the guards long enough for them to be waved through. After a tense and exhausting journey, they finally reached Gaeta. Pope Pius IX was safe. The escape was a success. The immediate fallout was chaos in Rome. The revolutionaries, realizing the Pope was gone, declared a Roman Republic, a radical secular state. But their victory was short-lived. Pius IX, from his exile in Gaeta, called on the Catholic powers of Europe for help. France, eager to restore its prestige as a defender of the Church, sent an army. After a bloody siege, French troops crushed the Roman Republic in the summer of 1849. In April 1850, Pope Pius XIX made his return to Rome, no longer the celebrated liberal, but a hardened conservative, deeply distrustful of the forces of liberalism, nationalism, and modern democracy that had betrayed him. The deeper meaning of this great escape is that it marked a crucial turning point for the papacy. The loss of his political power, which was finalized in 1870 when the new Kingdom of Italy seized Rome for good, forced the papacy to shed its identity as just another Italian monarchy. Stripped of its temporal armies and territories, the papacy's power became almost purely spiritual and moral. Pius IX, the pope who fled in disguise, became the pope who defined papal infallibility at the First Vatican Council. He lost an earthly kingdom, but, in doing so, clarified and strengthened his spiritual kingdom. The dramatic flight of 1848 was the beginning of the end of the Pope as a political king and the beginning of the modern papacy as a global moral and spiritual authority. If you enjoy the thrilling and often forgotten stories from the heart of church history, consider following our channel.